Buhalis. Professor Buhalis is the director of the eTourism Research Lab of the Bournemouth University. His research areas include ambient tourism, smart hospitality, and social media. Professor Buhalis will share with us on the smart and ambient intelligence tourism in the post-COVID era. Professor Buhalis, may I know you here?
Yes, I am here. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Nice to see you and nice to see Bob as well.
Yes, so Professor Sam Wong, Miss Cindy Wong, and the culture is all here too.
Lovely to see so many friends.
Yes, a good connect. All right, so are you ready, Professor Buhalis?
Yes, I am.
Yes, okay, so please.
Okay, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be with you. And it's quite early in the UK, and we've got a beautiful day in Bournemouth. And it was fantastic to hear from Bob, Cindy, and Sam before. Those are the ones that I managed to listen to. And I really want to talk to you about smart tourism and ambient intelligence and how those will bring us opportunities to get out of COVID. And I think Bob and the previous colleagues have done a fantastic job. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about COVID. First of all, let me advertise the Tourism Review and the Encyclopedia of Tourism Management and Marketing that I'm spending a lot of time doing these days, and invite people to look at them and contribute. And also, a lot of the things I'm going to say in 25 minutes are coming from a lot of the books and the publications I've done in the last 30 years. So smart tourism and agility, it's really about maximizing the performance of the industry as a network. It's really about bringing everything together, all the stakeholders within the ecosystem, and making sure that we take advantage of the interconnectivity and interoperability of integrated technologies to re-engineer process and data in order to maximize innovative services, products, and procedures towards maximizing the value for all stakeholders. Normally, when I was writing these things, it was about maximizing value so people can enjoy holidays, enjoy travel, and have a better experience when they're traveling. Now, what we've seen with COVID is that because of so much uncertainty, everybody needs information, everybody needs the current regulations, and everybody needs to know what's going to happen if I travel and what's going to happen if I book. So smartness is becoming even more central to what we do. I've been following Bob's movement from Hong Kong to Australia, and before he traveled, he had to understand all the requirements and everything that had to happen before you could travel. So there's a re-engineering out there that is shaping products, actions, process, and services in real time. And therefore, what smartness enables us to do is to bring together the technology and to bring together all the networks in the ecosystem and work with them in agility. Smartness is not about technology. Smartness is about bringing technology tools together, people, human capital, and knowledge management and leadership all together, where you bring smartness, economic actors, social actors, and technological actors to maximize the value co-created on the ecosystem for everybody to share. As a result, you've got smart innovations that contribute to smart city and smart country, and a layer of that is the services that you offer to tourists and how tourists are traveling. So you've got all kind of smart value that's being created. As I said, you need networks because you need interoperability and interconnectivity. You need the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything. You need sensors to collect information and beacons to send information out. You need big data and data analytics. You need social media and user-generated content. And you need technology-enabled industries that they are connecting to create value between them. And what happens is that these enabling technologies are creating innovations, and those are coming into the marketplace where the supply is meeting the demand, and then you've got several technologies that enable us to primarily develop location and time-based services, what we call real-time tourism. And then you've got virtual reality and augmented reality to superimpose information. And then eventually we'll see autonomous devices like drones and cars that they drive themselves, that they'll be able to help us maximizing the value. What's critical on that is understanding the context. And the context is the internal context, what the people feel and what kind of requirements they've got, and also the external context in terms of the location, the weather, the social environment, the season, the political situation, the traffic, the emergency delays, air pressure, and light. A lot of the things that we experience in COVID right now have changed the external context so rapidly that we constantly need to understand the external context. And one of the main complaints that we find in restaurants and pubs in England is the fact that they don't have an external environment that they can trust. So a lot of the companies, they start and go. They open, they order food, they order material. Then 2 weeks later, they've got to close. They throw all of these things away. They've got staff, they don't have staff, and the external environment is changing dramatically the way they do things. And I think this is really critical to look into the value within the external environment. Daisy, Fan, and myself and Lynn have created a typology of tourists to understand their online and face-to-face social contact when they're traveling. And what we see is that people, when they're traveling, they've got online social contacts that they maintain with the destination management organization, with different providers, their friends and family. And also at the same time, they've got face-to-face contact when they travel around. And what we see is that those things are getting integrated. And we kind of got together the different types of tourism. We classified them in 6 different types. And on the one side, you have got the digital life controllers that they're using technology to actually engage with everything that's happening around them. And on the other side, we've got the digital detox traveler that they switch off as soon as they go on travel and they don't want to touch any technology. And that's interesting on the way we manage those things. A lot of the smart tourism is based on big data, and we really need to see how big data is empowering agility, because we really need to understand where the data is coming from and how can we understand the real time, how can we understand the external context, and how can we understand how to manage those things. And a lot of those things are happening with what we call real time and nowness. Real time and nowness means that we understand the environment and we understand the contextual conditions where value is being co-created. And those things are information about location-based and places where you like to go and places you like to avoid, places where you kind of enjoy traveling to and places that you wouldn't enjoy or perhaps they'll be dangerous for you. And a lot of those things are happening from mentions, from hashtags, from sentiment analysis, trending topics, keynote tracking, and by looking to what the competitors are doing. And what you eventually do is you really look into what can actually trigger a change on your real-time competitiveness and what can change the conditions of the external environment. And then you look into how this is changing value co-creation and experience. And then you look into data-driven, consumer-centric experience enhancements in real time and co-creation happening together. This is what we call nowness. And a lot of those things are driving value and they're bringing value together. What we've seen with technology is how sharing economy has taken off and what is the impact of the sharing economy. And we've looked into this research about the dark side of the sharing economy and what's happening with Airbnb and what's happening with Uber and what's happening with any of the sharing economy value co-creation. Because what we can see is that there are some winners and some losers and some opportunities and some major threats that are happening out of the sharing economy. And ultimately, we are moving towards ambient intelligence, which are smart systems that they're all interconnected and they're working through the internet of everything. And they take advantage of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and ambient connectivity. And a lot of people, and especially in Asia, they're super connected. But I think where we are going next is when computers will be connected. It's when we'll have machine-to-machine connectivity and machine learning, which means that the machine will learn from all the decisions that we are supporting. Now, we'll have all kinds of human-to-human interaction in tourism, and that will include business, governments, consumers, employees, interest groups, and local residents. But increasingly, we'll have connectivity with robots and machines that they'll connect to each other. And all of these connectivities will happening simultaneously. So imagine the data that this will create, and imagine how all of those things will need to interact rapidly in order to be able to support the value co-creation. And what we see is that the consumer coming in the middle, and then a lot of those things are happening around them to support their behavior and to support their planning, their time at the destination, and when they come back. So you've got the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, 5G, RFID, smart devices, apps, cryptocurrencies, sensors, pervasive computers, gamification, and artificial intelligence and machine learning. All of those things happening at the same time, supporting value to consumers. And this is what we call smartness. And this is what we call when everything is connected. And because everything is connected, everything needs to operate together to develop tourism. Now, a lot of people, when I talk about these things, they say, okay, Professor, but now there is COVID and we're going in a crisis unlike others, and colleagues have talked about these things. This a few days ago, how many people have actually died over the period and where they've died. And you've seen how the waves have gone through different regions and how they're developing. This on the 17th of February, 2.4 million of deaths. And you can see in different regions how this has affected what's happening. As a result of that in tourism, we had 74% of international tourism being reduction in the international tourism. But as I said, there are always opportunities and there are always threats out there. So a lot of regions, they found domestic tourism and a lot of people, especially in Hong Kong, they've discovered a lot of places around, and they're doing hikes and they're doing looking to their internal situations. This is Bournemouth Airport. It has never seen so many planes in its life before, but unfortunately, most of these planes have parked there. And what we see is that business as unusual. A lot of companies, and Emirates in particular is playing a major role on this, are changing the way they operate. They're bringing all kinds of initiatives. And what we've seen is for those people in the first line, and these are employees that they've been supporting not only the customers, and if they didn't have customers, they were supporting health professionals, they were supporting people in need. And these are my heroes because they prepared and they supported hospitality and care. And care is what we do best. And this is something that I know a lot of students are listening to us for the time being, but it's really important to actually understand how can we bring our skills forward to support humanity and to support society at the time of need. And of course, we are in this business because this is our career and this is our life, but I think it's much bigger than that because we've got an obligation to society to support society move forward. And I think a lot of what you see, a lot of crew from airlines in the UK are now part of the vaccination teams because they are trained to actually provide first care. They have got some health skills and they are all volunteering to be on the first line. So the sooner we get out, the better it is. Now, it's undeniable that the job at risk because of COVID is significant. And of course, it's different in different places. Where we have a high degree of tourism, and you can see on the US, here's Nevada and this is Las Vegas. You can see this is probably one of the most of the dependent in tourism kind of regions in the world, you know. And you can see how these regions in particular, they depend on jobs for this thing. But we are blessed because a lot of our assets are still here. We've got all the experience and we've got all the products. And as Bob was saying, people will be traveling very, very soon and they would like to have fantastic experience. This is Santorini in Greece, by the way, and you are more than welcome to come along. So I think one of the impacts of COVID will be the end of planning and the beginning of agility. We kind of went on an automatic pilot. In Hong Kong, we always expected people to come from mainland China, spend a lot of time, fill suitcases and go back. In France, in Greece, in Italy, we found a lot of people coming from the north, coming to the south, get some sun, give us a lot of money and go back. I think we'll see a lot of more effort need to be given in order to actually co-create tourism in the future. And we need to do herd immunity very, very soon and to use smart and agile solutions to bring resilience forward. So when you see some of the solutions that you see, I talked about smartness early on and how people were constantly looking for information in order to make the best decisions out of what they can do. And we talked about smart systems and applications that help people manage those things. And a lot of applications like track and trace, where you could see where you have been and who you have been with and make sure that you were supporting the health authorities to actually trace people that have been together. This is the Singapore case. And you'll see a lot of Chinese applications where they were looking to how they can reduce the epidemiological load in particular place and reduce the risk that people are doing, and eventually giving you a green light so you could travel. Thailand have just announced the Thailand Plus, which will you'll need to download and you need to use in order to be able to go to Thailand. And it will enable people, the Thai authorities to track foreign tourists in Thailand and therefore assess the risk of the COVID and what's happening. And I don't have the time to play this video, but there's a nice little video that explains what Thailand Plus application is doing to enable the tracking of foreign tourism in Thailand. You'll see the link there so you can play it. And one of the things that we've got is what we call vaccination certificates or vaccination passports. And IATA, the airline travel association, is bringing together an application that's currently being piloted with Emirates and with Etihad in order to make sure that we know who has been vaccinated and we know if they're allowed. And what you'll see eventually is that a lot of organizations, a lot of transportation companies, a lot of tour operators will demand people to be vaccinated before they can actually take part in travel experiences. And IATA, as I said, the travel pass is being currently tested in Emirates, and we are very much looking to the result of that. Closer to home in Hong Kong, you'll see some of the innovations in Hotel Icon, as you know, with installation of thermal scanners and all kinds of protocols to make sure that those people who are on staycation, they are staying safe. And you see a lot of technologies that are being deployed out there to understand and pick up problems. And also, it's really about redesigning the facilities and look into the facilities, how we need to take protocols, hygienic protocols, into the place. For example, it says here, we don't do valet parking anymore because that may actually spread the virus. Or we need to look into what are the flows in our facilities and how can we reduce the spread and how can maximize safety, security. Smartness is really critical in that because it enables us to have applications that support touchless services, and we can operate rooms, we can order room service, we can do all kinds of things without touching any catalogs or anything. So we're only touching our machine, our smartphones. And you'll see UVC disinfections that they're operating in many places, and fogging machines to reduce the impact. Increasingly, you'll see robots and you'll see all kinds of technologies being supporting the service. This is the Hana Hotel in in Japan. There are a lot of problems with these things, but there are a lot of opportunities that are coming, and that technology will come forward. I don't know if anybody who would like to carry suitcases. Really, when I carry my suitcase, my back is suffering. And we'll see a lot of machines actually doing these things, and you'll see a lot of the service being redesigned on anything from cooking and serving and providing all kinds of manual work. Now, a lot of these things are still almost an attraction in itself because people are playing with the robots, but at some stage, a lot of those things will come forward. And I don't know if anybody would like to bring housekeeping supplies to a room at 4 o'clock in the morning, but these robots are more than happy to do so, or to carry things around and engaging with different requests. Now, autonomous vehicles and autonomous devices are also going to change a whole range of the way that we experience destinations. And I think this is really important to start understanding that a lot of the functions that the consumer used to take, it's going to go to machines, and a lot of the experience will be gamified. This is my book that's coming out any day now. Please order it in advance, and I can give you a code to get it for get a 30% discount. But what that says is that how people will engage in a very different way with destinations and learn from those things. And when I normally talk about these things, this is a lot of people are thinking, oh my God, this is going to happen in the future. In fact, it isn't. This is last year when we're still traveling. I was in Hangzhou, and this little fellow used to follow me around. I saw him on the elevator, and we became friends. And we started having a conversation quite often because he was very fun. He was working very, very hard to deliver supplies to people. Now, a lot of those things are based on a lot of publications, and here's a list. You can find them on buhalis.com publications, so you can understand a lot of those things. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Buhalis, for your wonderful sharing as a very fruitful one. We will now invite questions from the floor. So the question can be for four of our speakers, including Professor Sam Wang, Ms. Cindy Wong, Professor Bob McCurcher, and Professor Dimitrios Buhalis. So if you have a question, you can type in the chat box, and then please indicate which one you would like to ask. So I can see the question from Joe. May I know which speaker you would like to ask the questions to? So I think that's the question for Professor Buhalis. Let me read the question for you. Hong Kong is the pioneer of business and high technology, but there are fewer hotels who would like to add robotic service in Hong Kong. What do you think about this phenomenon?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Say it again.
Okay, the question is, Hong Kong is the pioneer of business and high technology, but there are fewer hotels who would like to put a robotic service in Hong Kong. What do you think about this phenomenon?
I think hospitality is quite complex, and we see that all over the world, not only in Hong Kong, that some of the people who are in this industry are very hospitable, and they are not really so much engaged with technology. They like to touch, they like to meet people, they like to have conversations with people. And what happens is that they are not the type of people that they are bringing technological innovation forward. What you see is that they've got different ways of communicating. And I think what's then happening is that there are some organizations who are and some hotels that they are actually left behind. And if you're left behind, you drop off the market. I'm a great fan of Hotel Icon Hong Kong. I've worked with Richard and the colleagues in PolyU on several innovations. And one of the things that they had was this little application which called Smarty, if I remember well, that kind of engaged consumers in different ways to operate together with the hotel. Now, it's not either or. It's not that you're either going to go into technology or you're going to go face to face. We are living in very hybrid worlds. And you remember what I said about this typology of the 6 types of different customers. And that explains that people operate in a very different ways. I had a fantastic conversation with Bob. I don't remember where. I think it was in Vietnam somewhere, where we kind of compared how we travel. I travel with all my technologies. I'm totally connected. I know on the Google Maps where I am and everything. Bob had left his smartphone at the hotel. We're sitting next to each other. We are both tourists in Da Nang, I remember now, in Vietnam. And we are both tourists and we are both in the same conference, but our consumer behavior was very different. So I think what is the future is to actually understand what does the consumer want and meet them in their way. So Bob will kind of explore and go around, and I'll be exploring, but I'll explore in different ways. So understanding the 6 types of tourists and providing services in the way that they would like to be serviced is absolutely critical. But a word of warning: those people who are not engaged with technology and cannot actually support these people that they are traveling with technology will find really, really difficult in the future to serve that market. And if they've got other markets that they're offline, okay, quite old people and they have not engaged, that's fine. But a lot of those people find really, really difficult to move forward. And they may disappear. And I normally say to my students, I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you had in Hong Kong what we call the yellow pages, where you had the telephone number of every company.
Very old.
Yeah. I'm not sure that any of you have actually used the yellow pages in the last 10 years. And it's exactly that,
Yeah.
It has moved on.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you, Professor Buhalis. Actually, there's another question for you too. It is the question about the use of technology in the tourism field. How does the advancement of technology benefit those who are not familiarized with the new technology? For example, the elderly or the senior citizens.
There's something that we call digital divide, and that means that some people who are not familiar with technology, they lose out, and there's a problem with that because part of the society will drop off. What we've seen around the world is that those people are actually using proxies. So their kids, their grandchildren, they are setting up different things in order to be able to do. I used to, when my mom was alive, she used to call me and said, oh, I've got a problem, I don't know how to do that. And while we're on the phone, I'll go online and I'll kind of do it for her, pay a bill or whatever. Although because of COVID, even the older people, they had to deal with a lot of things in isolation, and they had to learn a lot of things. I know a lot of older people that they learn how to use Skype and Zoom, and we've got the cyber nannies as well, that they are talking a little story to the granddaughter who happens to be somewhere else, and I see some in Australia. I don't know where your parents some are, but you see a lot of people who are in a distance, and what they were doing is they were doing distant parenting or grandchildren and things. So what's happening for the older people? Yes, there's a major issue with this digital divide, and they're excluded from this market and the economy. But what we see is that they are using proxies. There are 2 things that are happening. One is that technology is becoming simpler, so therefore they're coming forward and they're using it. But also they're using proxies in terms of their kids, that's also a business opportunity, for some of your graduates to create services for the older people to be able to do it in the way that they like. So I don't know, groceries, for example. Now we're a lot expected to order groceries on the mobile phone, on smartphones, but it may be a service that someone is actually using a phone to talk to an old lady and say, what do you need? I need duck or whatever, I'll go and bring it for you from the supermarket. And for that service, I'll pay, I don't know, 100 Hong Kong dollars or 10% on your bill or whatever. So what you find is that there's an intermediary that is coming between the smart and the fast solution and the slow kind of adopters. And this intermediary is creating a business opportunity. It's kind of Deliveroo, but for the older people, if you like, that may be on the phone, or something like Cindy was talking about Deliveroo earlier, and it's really about Deliveroo for the older people.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Buhalis, of your answers. Thank you. All right. How about we move to the next question for Professor Sam Wang. The question actually is that Shenzhen is a popular place for Hong Kong youngsters to travel prior to the social movements and the pandemic. Do you see such trend returns in the post-COVID-19 era? Are there any other cities which share in the GBA share the same potential?
Well, I think that will come back. Actually, Hong Kong people, they are quite mobile. For young people in Hong Kong, I'm sure most of them will travel not only to Shenzhen, but also within this Great Bay Area. This big bridge that will connect Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and Zhuhai, and also Macau. So this area, people will become more mobile. In the future, it's quite natural to see young people in Hong Kong. They don't really, especially for young people studying tourism or working in the tourism sector, they need to be more mobile. They will frequently travel across borders. There may not be borders in this area. People can just swipe a card and then they go into one area and swipe a card and then go back in Hong Kong within a day. So I don't see any problem with such a movement. Definitely the technology and also the integration trend of the area will make people more mobile in the future. After the pandemic, I think people will still travel a lot.
So it's still quite promising, right?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Professor Sam Wang. Okay, now we do have still 3 more questions for Ms. Cindy Wong and Professor McKercher. Okay, maybe I start with the one to Ms. Cindy Wong.
Hello, I'm reading it.
Okay. How about I just read it and then you can answer it. So due to the pandemic, traveling across borders has become almost impossible. Staycations and traveling to country parks have become a new trend for people who spend their holidays. How does the local tourism and hospitality industry adapt to this new trend and seize new opportunities?
Okay, well, actually, Hong Kong people and Hong Kong businesses are very resilient, I would say. For local tourism, like for example, I think you mean local travel agencies. Actually, a few of them, I know that they also are selling e-commerce. It's quite interesting. Actually, some of those companies, especially some Japanese travel agents, I know, they set up because they have a special niche about where to find the suppliers for certain products from Japan. So they also set up an e-commerce arm to sell the Japanese products or the food to the local consumers in Hong Kong. Because I think during COVID, we cannot travel, but we still want to add as since we are traveling. Like for example, like we still love to visit Japanese, restaurants, and also, we want to, visit Taiwan so much. So we also, go to Taiwanese eateries. So that's why I think one way is, that really, instead of doing a traditional travel business, which is, is very difficult to survive in the future. A lot of them, they shift to e-commerce already. And for hospitality industry, like for example, like of course the hotels, they shift to staycation, and some of them, they also take the chance during COVID to do renovation about, the rooms and also upgrade the restaurants, or even, some of the 5-star hotels, actually they renovated, the existing restaurant so that after after the COVID, is solved, there may be a change of the appetite of the tourists or the local people, so that they can, change the menu, change the cuisine, so that to adapt to the, the recovery better. So I would say, in Hong Kong, companies and also people are really, being resilient and also being creative in doing different things.
Okay. Yes, thank you for the answer, Ms. Wong. Yes, all right, good elaboration there. All right, how about let's move to the next question to Professor Bob McKercher. So it is the questions in terms of the business development and job opportunities. What is your view to the development of Hong Kong hotels in the near future?
Well, when I talk to the Hotel Owners Association people, they're still planning to build in the future. It takes anywhere between 7 and 9 years from conceiving the idea of a hotel to actually the soft opening. And so nothing's really slowing down in terms of future development. What is slowing down right now is the renovation of existing properties. And even some of the more affluent property developers have shut down hotels to do the renovation all at once. So in terms of hotel development, it's going to continue to grow apace. In terms of job opportunities, I think you need to listen to what Cindy said. And over the short term, it might be a little bit tough, and you may need to look at a series of 3-month jobs or 6-month jobs. But the goal is to build your CV, to build some expertise in certain areas. Now, 40 years ago, when I finished my master's degree in tourism, we were in the midst of a recession in Canada, and I had 8 jobs in 3 years. And in doing so, I was able to build expertise in marketing, build expertise in planning, build expertise in research, and package those 8 jobs together in terms of the skills I had to offer to employers, and ended up, once the economy hardened up a bit, then I was able to get a really good job that led ultimately to me being in Hong Kong for 22 years. So I think you have to look at it as being more of a marathon than a sprint. And while times are tough, you build your CV with what you can. When times are good, then that's when you're going to get your first full-time job. And one other thing about fresh graduates is we did a study both in Australia and we did another one in Hong Kong. And as a fresh graduate, if you don't change your job twice within your first 3 years of graduating, either by getting a promotion or by changing employer, you're going to fall behind everybody else. So your first few years in the workplace, you have to be incredibly mobile to build up the knowledge, to start to get yourself in a position where you can use your education in a supervisory, managerial, marketing, HR role that you're training for.
Okay. Oh. Okay. So there's one more question for you. So it's the question for Professor McKercher too. After 1 year of staying at home to fight against the pandemic, is revenge buying possible in a post-COVID period in the hospitality and tourism industry? Would this revive the traditional travel agency?
I'll give you my opinions, and perhaps Dimitrios can supplement this. I think we've seen the fundamental shift now in how people book their travel. And I think the traditional travel agent, if they don't have a really strong online presence, is in deep, deep trouble. Dimitrios, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think one of the things that we learned during this year is how critical tourism is for our mental health and how important it is for communities around the world. both in terms of the demand and at the same time in terms of the supply. And I think what we've seen for the first time, tourism being part of the Prime Minister's agenda everywhere in the world. We've seen prime ministers coming forward and will talk about tourism and reopening because they understand the importance of the activity. And I think what's going to happen is that, as Bob was saying early on, once tourism opens, it will go boom because people will start realizing that they don't need 30 pair of shoes. You guys in Hong Kong, you don't even have the space to put them, right? So what you'll see is that people will, instead of collecting materials, they'll collect experiences. They collect meaningful kind of experiences and connections with people. And I think we'll see that everywhere in the world. People just realizing how important it is to go and meet their mom, to meet their loved ones, and rather than buy another pair of shoes. And I think that is something that it's going to be left from COVID, the fact that we don't need so much material, but we need much more emotional connections.
Okay. All right.
And I miss Bob, by the way. So really, and now he has gone to Australia. It's another 10 hours from Hong Kong to see him. Okay.
Professor Valkercha, any more supplement from your side?
No, I think it's pretty much been said. I'd be very cautious about taking up a job in a retail travel agency.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there are two issues here, Bob. I think in terms of the retail travel agency, what we see is that a lot of people would like to actually go to offline agencies now. And the reason is that they feel that if something goes wrong, a human being is going to take care of them. The problem we had during COVID is that a lot of companies around the world, they were not prepared, or some of them, they didn't even want to be prepared to serve consumers. And I'll tell you what happened, right? So let's say that British Airways has canceled your flight, or your flight has been canceled because of COVID restrictions, right? So you had paid already £1,000 to fly from London to Hong Kong. Now your flight is being cancelled. Now you will expect a refund for this money, right? But as Cindy will know better than anybody else, if everybody gets out the £1,000, the liquidity of the company is going to go really, really bad, and the company will go bankrupt. So what happened is that most of the companies, they restricted their access. They said, look, it's COVID, and therefore my staff does not come to the office and will be delayed. I'm terribly sorry, but like everybody else, we are not going to be able to offer you the same customer service. So people spend awfully a lot of time waiting on a phone, on a calling center somewhere, 2 to 3 hours waiting to be speaking to someone. And a lot of people said, never again. I'm going to leave that to the professionals. They've got the tools. And I know that I'll go to the local travel agent and I'm going to pick up a fight if I need to, but I'm not going to deal with a call center or a website for a long time. So I think what we'll see is that we'll see a lot of offline kind of activities coming back, because at the time of crisis, people would like to have someone to trust or someone to blame.
Okay. Well, we all hope the hospitality and tourism industry can recover as soon as it can be. So thank you very much for all of our speakers again for your very valuable information and sharing. With this, all the sections of today's forum has been completed. Thank you very much for your kind attendance and active engagement.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you.
As a token of appreciation, we have prepared certificates to our speakers. Our school will send you the hard copy of the certificate to you by mail. So please stay tuned for our updates. Thank you all again very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you to the
Thank you
students
for
for
your
listening.
Stay
sharing.
safe,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you for making time in your busy schedule to join us here in this afternoon. It's been our pleasure to hold this event. I wish you all have a very pleasant day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank
เช่น
you.
กัน
บ๊ายบาย
สวัสดีค่ะ
ขอบคุณค่ะ